Hello everyone, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. Today's video is an important one, and it's actually, I'm doing this video because many of you asked me to address this subject. I appreciate that you did, because as I thought about this subject, I realized I don't think I've seen a video specifically addressing techniques on how to get out of this situation. What we're talking about today is aggression with birds of prey, and specifically what to do if you get grabbed. If you're not a falconer, we normally call that being footed. Birds of prey, it's fairly well known, have long, sharp talons, and people worry about that. Actually, non-falconers always ask me about the beak. People always say, aren't you worried that bird's gonna peck your eyes out? I'm like, no, they don't have a pointy beak, so they can't peck. They have a hooked beak, and no, I'm not that afraid of the beak. So, beaks can bite, and birds of prey do have a powerful bite. But if everything I'm talking about today, put the beak on the back burner. It's almost irrelevant, and I'll address that more in a minute, but we're talking about the feet. And it doesn't matter how long the talons are or even how sharp they are. It's the crushing grip driven by tendons. On the one end of the spectrum, take a sharp-shinned hawk. Sharp-shinned hawks are the smallest true hawk in North America, with tiny, tiny, delicate little toes and legs that look like bamboo shish kebab skewers. Their talons are big, but they are filled with tendons, and the muscles that pull those tendons and draw the feet closed are hidden up closer to the body. So you might think, oh, it's a little bird, and then you get grabbed by one and you're crying your eyes out. So any bird of prey is capable of inflicting a lot of damage with its feet. Now, I must say that if you're a regular falconer practicing in a good level of the sport, you probably, at best, or I mean, I guess I should say worse, really have this, you might get footed once a year, if that. This is a rare occurrence, but it does happen. Usually, if a falconer gets footed by their bird, it is because they're rushed. Something happens and they're a little sloppy, and they somehow accidentally get tangled into the thick of things. Just a few examples of what could happen. A freshly trapped bird, when you're getting them off of the trap, might reach up and get you. Your bird could be on a kill, and you rush in too quickly, and as you're going to help them enter into the prey, they reach out and grab you as a reaction of self-defense over their kill. Rehabilitation. I help with wildlife rehabilitation, and a lot of times when you have other people helping hold a bird can get loose and grab you. Or maybe you have flown a red-tailed hawk too often to the fist for a reward of food, and now they become violently defensive of the fist, and then your second year, they land on your fist, look at you, you're like, you're trying to steal my food, and grab your face. These are rare occurrences, but when they happen, you can be in a panic. What do you do? How do you get out of this situation? And the tremendous gripping force, most birds of prey have hundreds of pounds of crushing grip per square inch that they can exert. So it's not like a cat that's slashing you. It's impale. And even worse, owls. Owls, each talon folds over and then rolls in. They try to get that out. I usually have to say great horned owls and eagle owls, getting footed by one of them has been more painful overall than an eagle, which is much larger. So what do you do if that happens? Well, the first thing you want to do in any of those situations is you have to be zen. You have to just say, okay, it's all good. I am in excruciating pain. I am going to calmly get out of this situation and not show overly emotional behavior in front of the bird until after that. Then I can go out of the room and scream or cry or kick a wall or go or whatever you need to do. These are not mammals. Now, if a dog bites you and growls, you might growl back and be like, "What are you doing?" You can't do that with a bird. If a bird of prey is grabbing you for any reason, it is most likely a reaction. They're not just thinking, I'm going to show my dominance and grab this human. Birds of prey in the wild don't go around grabbing people. They don't try to eat us. So this is not normal behavior. So they're in reaction mode. And if you watch the video I posted yesterday, reaction mode is not a mode that is good to have a bird in when it comes to anything aggressive or behavioral. So, very first thing, get yourself in a zen-like state and saying, I'm not going to emotionally respond to this pain until I've addressed it. Now, the second thing is take a look, assess the whole situation. Am I alone? Are there people around? Are there other birds around? And look, most importantly, at the feet. You've got 8 talons. Where are they? Let's say you have 1 foot embedded in you, and this other foot's out here. There's 4 talons. Okay, assess those. Forget the one that's attacking you, and keep these under control. This foot over here is the one that's about to cause you problems, because if you start trying to pull these talons out, it's going to go into reaction mode and grab you with the other foot. Now what are you going to do? So you or someone else, make sure whatever talons are out, or if it only has 2 talons in on 1 foot, make sure this foot is taken care of and that these talons are taken care of. So get rid of everything, whether you're covering them with a towel or having somebody else grab those talons, so that you can address only those. You have to do that always. Now, you can do that with the beak as well, but I almost never care. There's a couple of exceptions, but normally I'm like, yeah, you've got a beak. You could bite me really hard and I'd bleed. Ooh, it's nothing compared to the damage a talon can do. So if you're able to control the head as well, great. But as long as you've got the other foot under control, then you are good and you're ready to proceed with what you want to do. Now, there's normally 3 main ways to try to get talons removed. The first is just what we call mechanical removal, meaning just you are physically, there's no psychological work. It's all mechanical movement, so to speak, which is where you are just trying to carefully pull them out, or somebody else's. That seems pretty straight, cut and dry, but raptors have a ratchet system. When you grip your hands, your full capacity, they want to relax. It's hard. They're the opposite. They have ratcheting tendons that click, 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 click. And when you pull them, you might even hear a click, 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 click as you're going past each boundary. And because of that, it's difficult. They lock. But that is your first attempt, is you can try to pull those out. If you or your person helping you pulls a talon out of your flesh, block it with something. Put a pencil or a pen under it, or wrap a washcloth around it, something, because when you move to the next talon, that first one's going to go right back in. So that's your first thing, the kind of intuitive, well, let's just pull these. But just make sure that you have calmed yourself down into a zen-like state first, and make sure that you have protected and blocked any other talons before you start doing that. The second technique works. I haven't done this much, but I know a lot of people who this is their go-to, which is a psychological approach. Your bird is in a reactive state, so the attempt is, how do we get them out of that reactive state? Vertigo. And so what you can do is you can have somebody carefully hold the head and gently start to guide the head backwards, kind of upside down, so they're looking like that. Vertigo will set in typically, and they're like, wait, what's going on? I don't know what's happening. And then they just let go. It's a good technique. It works pretty well. The last one is the Hail Mary pass that I think works very well, especially if you're alone, which is another psychological approach. Stand up on a chair, on a ladder, something, and jump. And when they feel that motion of, then they, what? They feel falling and they feel like, I need to let go and address, do I need to fly? That can be a very good one, especially if it's an eagle, because if you get grabbed by an eagle, or an owl for that matter too, the way owls grip and the strength at which eagles grip, in most instances, good luck trying to pull it out. And so stand up on a ladder, stand up on a chair, jump off, and let that psychological effect of I'm falling hit their mind, and hopefully they will let go. And if it doesn't work the first time, do it 2, 3, 4 times, and usually they will let go. Now, again, in that situation, you better still have a hold of the bird or the leash or whatever, depending on your circumstance, but think it through before you take a little jump off. But that definitely does work. Now, another thing I want to address is curbing behavior, and I want to give you two examples of this. What we've talked about so far, I've given you instances where it's an isolated occurrence. You got too close to the food on a kill and the bird footed you. Or let's say you're out hunting, your bird's flying, and a wild bird comes and they're scrabbling, and you run over there, and you're like, I'm trying to separate them, and you get grabbed. Those are very isolated occurrences. But what if you have instances of aggression that keep repeating? You need to fix this. You either need to deter them. Remember, you cannot discipline a bird of prey. So how do you deter the behavior or avoid it altogether? So I want to give you two quick examples of that. My smallest golden eagle I ever had was named Rage, and he named himself. He lived up to his name. And one of his big things was he would go chase after a rabbit, and if he missed, he would turn around and he'd fly back to my glove that I had no food on because I don't want a golden eagle being aggressive in that way. And then he would turn to me, look over at me, and right here he would foot me 3 times every time. It wasn't his full grip, but he was just mad because he was almost to that rabbit and he missed, and he just wanted to let out some of that rage on something. And he did it on my shoulder. That's not good. And I thought through, how do I fix this? How do I change it? And finally what I tried doing is I took a baseball mitt, put it up under, like armor, like leather armor, under my jacket. And what happened is he would land and he'd go, and he'd feel that resistance, and he's like, oh. I didn't get hurt, so I was non-reactive. But because there was more resistance, because a baseball mitt is much tougher than my shoulder, then slowly and surely he stopped doing it. He would grip less and less, and then he'd do 2 grabs or 1, and then he finally stopped. So it was not a punishment, because you cannot discipline a bird, but it was trying to curb the behavior. Now, sometimes you need to completely circumvent a situation. So this last example I want to give is not even a raptor, but it still fits. I do educational bird shows, and I was at a facility where I had a trumpeter hornbill. Her name's Tizana. She's a wonderful bird. She's very gentle. She's very nice. And as part of our show, she would fly out on the stage. We'd fly her back and forth, and then I would walk her off stage, hand her to somebody else who would put her back in her cage. Well, she developed this behavior for who knows why, that at that transfer from me to another person, that she would violently attack and bite both of us, no matter what. And it didn't matter who I transferred to. She just had this weird aggression, even only at that transfer point. We tried everything, and finally, we just said, the only way to troubleshoot through this is to make this situation cease to exist. So what I switched to is like, well, I will just, on stage, walk her off myself and put her in the cage. Problem solved. So sometimes you have to concede. Sometimes, and I know that's not a raptor, but I wanted you to understand the psychology, is that even with birds of prey, if there's a situation that gets bad and you can't troubleshoot through it, get rid of the situation altogether and find a different way. And that is if you have reoccurring aggression. Always think through the mentality of the bird. So I hope that these techniques prove valuable to you. If there's any other videos you'd like me to make or any topics you'd like to address, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. And as always, happy hawking.